Hello, my name is Wes Dawson, and welcome back to another episode of Gabagool, Nate. And what a special week, what a special time of year, as this is another Gabagool, Nate Christmas. So yes, it's that special time of the year, and no, I'm not talking about time to hide your assets and downplay your illegitimate income from the government. I'm talking about that Christmas, that holiday, that Kwanzaa, that Hanukkah, that, honestly, don't know any other, this time of year centered holidays, so we'll end it at that. It's a special time of the year for many people, and I think it deserves, yet again, its own Christmas special. So topics discussed this week, of course, the inverse relationship of receiving socks for Christmas and your age, what color snow tastes best, and what legally ambiguous herbs you can add to Santa's milk or cookies to ensure a very Merry Christmas. So for some people, it's a very religious holiday. Some people, it's more of a family get-together, a social holiday, if you will. And for other people, they're just bitter fucking all year round, and Christmas is no different, and they just have nothing but negative things to say about the holiday. And if that's the case, well, I hope you skid off the road into a tree. So moving on to this week's first subject, hard facts. Now, one thing I fucking hate is trendy shit, because it just ruins everything. Hipsters ruined hunting for cool oddities at thrift stores, and now ugly Christmas sweaters. Now, it used to be, because they were ugly, they cost $5, because they look like dog shit woven into a sweater. But as soon as they became somewhat fashionable, they're now $70, $80 for a sweater that you wear once a year, if even, as you desperately struggle to show your peers, see, I'm hip, and they roll their eyes hard enough to detach a retina. So a little bit later on in the show, we're going to be calling on, of course, none other than Santa Claus, jolly old Saint Nick, because I really want to get down to the bottom of this whole kind of pervy, I know when you're sleeping, I know when you're awake thing. I'm not so big on this year-round stalking just to give me a PS4 game at the end of the year. We'll have a little chit-chat with Santy about that, okay? Now, for the next segment of dumb shit people say you should be smarter, this isn't really a subject that necessarily ties into Christmas or the holidays per se. It's just something that I've noticed over the past year, something that maybe should be addressed, maybe shouldn't, but either way, here it is. It's when people say things like, just because we don't share the same beliefs doesn't mean you have to resort to insults. Well, in some cases, yes, it does. Of course it does. Just because you frame your reply well or you're articulate in explaining it, it doesn't mean that you're not an idiot. If you come home for Thanksgiving and your mother was hand-shoveling her own shit into her mouth saying, no, I think poo-poo tastes like cocoa. In my opinion, it's much healthier than a traditional Christmas meal. Now, would your reaction be, well, we have to respect her opinion. Who are we to judge just because we disagree? No, you'd ask, are you fucking crazy? Did you suffer head trauma? What is going on? And there is nothing wrong with that. This idea that people are above reproach, questioning, or judgment, that's the real toxicity online. And just to clarify, there's a big distinction between being misinformed and being willfully ignorant. So some people say really dumb things. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm looking at you. And to excuse this, they say, well, there was no warning. There was no disclaimer. There was nothing explicitly telling me that it wasn't true. And then they spew these things about Jewish space lasers, forest fires are started by Jewish-controlled lasers in outer space, which I don't even understand how that was uttered from someone's mouth. Either way, I can understand where you're coming from to some extent. Because, when I was younger, I always wanted to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Now, I didn't need a disclaimer. No one had to sit me down and explain to me that it was a cartoon. No, I turned 8, and then it was kind of obvious. And now a very special segment just for another Gabagool Nate Christmas will be this year's naughty list. Now at the top of this list is, of course, YouTube. Probably has something to do with their long-standing position of censoring videos on their platform as per their own political and financial agendas. Now this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, as we should all know by now that the U in YouTube stands for you've been duped. People reject this mainstream media, but consume the same bullshit on YouTube, and basically because the backdrop is somebody's bedroom with an LED light strip on the ceiling. Oh, they're so relatable. This is so authentic. They're just like me. But anyway, I digress. And of course, they're brothers in arms. A company like Twitter wants to start banning memes. I'm sure that will work great. Boohoo words and memes, those are bad and they must be stopped. but actively pushing misinformation, stirring controversy, and knowingly contributing to the degradation of the mental health of the youth, and being able to quantifiably demonstrate the harm you are doing to them means nothing when these tech companies are bringing in billions in revenue. Am I right? Not to mention, I notice it's not just on YouTube, it seems to be all the fucking main tech sites now is like this arbitrary, faulty flagging system. And it basically works like this. Do you have many followers that are generating ad revenue? Oh, you do? Okay, well then you could flag any page that you feel is competition or who is serving up any criticism of you, flag them into oblivion, so long as they have considerably less subscriptions than you. See, the goal is to crush the little guy under your heel, not to actually improve anything or try and remove some of this toxic atmosphere that we find online. And also the fact that YouTube likes to censor certain words without context or apparently understanding of the fucking English language. Is that not like implicit support of that stance? You know, if I want to have an episode basically explaining racism is bad, we are all humans, or domestic violence is never acceptable and needs to be made a priority for law enforcement agencies, and then YouTube will censor or block or demonetize these videos with no real reasoning why. Just basically they said a trigger word that an algorithm didn't like. So does that mean that these giant tech firms are not only soulless conglomerates whose only goal is financial gain regardless of any societal cost, but that they also implicitly support racism and domestic abuse? Now that's a pretty curious stance for companies who are so obsessed with PR and public image. Well, for this week's Christmas-centered shooter pistol whip, I'm going to give myself a jolly old pistol whipping for thinking that when I used to be forced to go to church and we had to sing this hymn, I think it's called like Sing Gloria Hallelujah. Gloria. Probably the best rendition I've ever done in my life, and I'm not even in a church. Anyway, as a child, I always thought they were singing about my Auntie Gloria. I was way too old by the time I realized this was not the case, that a, 1,000-year-old plus hymn was not in fact written about my aunt. Well, this has been another Gabagool and a Christmas. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas or Merry Religious Equivalent. And upcoming for next week, well, in the name of the holidays and family fun, I've rigged my house a la Home Alone with some elaborate pranks for my loved ones. Also known as first-degree murder attempts for my 70-year-old mother to discover when she returns home after a long day of work. And I'll detail the results of these lighthearted pranks next week. So we're releasing this episode a little early in order to line up with the Gabagool and 8 charity Christmas holiday drive. See, it's starting this week, and we will be, possibly, delivering toys to all of the needy children in various parts of the city. Now, Gabagool and 8 doesn't have that whole participation trophy mentality, so only good kids will be receiving a gift. If you've been good all year, or your parents have subscribed to the various Gabagool and 8 social media platforms, I will be hurling a surprise gift through your living room window first thing on Christmas morning. Now, if you've been bad, I'll basically be doing the exact same thing except hurling a large brick of coal or the nearest hardened dark lump I can find through your window. My name is Wes Dawson. This has been Gabagool and 8. Thank you so much for listening. I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas or a very Happy Religious Equivalent. And remember, whether you're religious, whether it's a family get-together, these things are always about people. So the ones that you love, the ones that you care about, hold them close, let them know how you feel. The ones that you don't care about, well, they can eat shit and die. No, wait, that's not very festive. Cut people some slack, have a bit of empathy, and just try to be a little bit more positive in 2022. I'll see you there.